Doop it today on Doop by the River. We're going to look back at that dub for the Philadelphia last Saturday down in Florida. Big win against Orlando City. As we look ahead at this upcoming Saturday, as we'll be hosting the Houston Dynamo. And ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to go anywhere because you do not want to miss this episode of Doop by the River. Let's get this started, guys. Done!
Doop by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Doop by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of Doop by the River, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on to today's live edition of Doop by the River. If you're watching this live, do us a solid, hit that like button, subscribe to never miss out on your live viewings of this podcast. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you today, my experts in duping. First off, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, with the Jim Curtin drip hoodie. Zach Labas is back. What's up, Zach?
How's it going, man?
I'm pretty good, man. It's good seeing you back here, buddy. What's new with you, man?
Nothing much. Kind of quiet. You know, school finishing up. Got 2 classes left, and then just coaching still. And yeah, that's about it.
Wake up, school, soccer, breathe, repeat. That's
Actually playing a bit now too. A little 8v8 Tuesdays and Thursdays. So.
You never get away from the sport, man. That's what we like.
Never.
Why don't you pick up like baseball or something, Zach?
I can't. I get too bored.
I don't blame you. Well, welcome back, Zach. It's good seeing Zach back in here. And, of course, joining us, as always, the king of the nicknames. Please welcome Justin Hungarian Muay Thai fighter Friedberg. What's up, Justin? How you doing today?
Not too bad, you know. Like Zach, it's been a lot of soccer lately. Went up to Hartford to catch a little Hartford Athletic Pittsburgh Riverhounds action. Got to explore some sites around Hartford. Ironically, got to talk to Penn State legend and one of the all-time current leading goal scorers in USL Championship, Corey Herzog. Look, I got to pick his brain about some soccer, so that was part of a nice weekend. Monday got to the second week of the Neighborhood Cup for the Longcrest side. Got to put your boy put in some solid work in a very hot and muggy affair. A nice 7-5 win. You know, with some solid saves. That's been a lot of soccer lately, but can't think of a sport I'd rather be talking about and playing than this beautiful game.
I get so jealous of you guys. So if you guys haven't heard, I've been really excited watching behind the scenes. Colombia, the women's team, making it to the Copa America finals. So it's been, I haven't been able to watch diligently as much as I wanted to, but like hearing your guys' stories with soccer, I'd like to live vicariously through both of you. So I'm definitely happy to do that. But speaking of which, gentlemen, it's funny because this whole summer, it's been the craziest offseason with transfers when it comes to them. It's like we're involved in different conversations. We remember the Jesse Lingard earlier in the offseason, or for the European offseason. But obviously this week was Luis Suarez, and there was actual like heat coming from the MLS. And unfortunately, it wound up being the Nacional was club for Suarez. Obviously World Cup implications, but. No, it's funny because I was listening to the Cooligans, our buddies over there. Shouts to the Cooligans, but like I agree with Christian, and I'm sure you listened to the episode as well, Justin. Like I do feel like the MLS is a better league than Uruguay. Like I don't understand why he needs to go back and play for Uruguay if he still wants to play for the World Cup team. But
so
who am I?
The rumors that I've heard swirling around that is it's kind of a like stopgap measure, at least for a few months, just to kind of have some minutes. And from what I've heard, a certain LA team has some spots opening up after this season. And I think compared to what they have up top, it's a let's be honest, it's a very big upgrade. Again, just rumors, but it would kind of track with with everything I've been hearing. And I mean, for the couple months before the World Cup, I don't think it's it might be a slightly down step, but I think it's still mainly just about keeping fitness up.
Yeah, I agree, man. Zach, I wanted to ask you because LAFC was heavily involved in these rumors with Luis Suarez. But dude, I mean, you look at that roster. I mean, do you feel like they are playing under the rules? And I don't know if you saw this thread on Twitter, which I'll probably have to put up on the screen. But
I did see the thread. I didn't like read it all the way through because it was long. But
that dude went deep, man.
Yeah, he went deep. But I think the thing that we have to look at is like players from overseas are going to want to go to 3 spots in the MLS.
That's a good point.
90% of the time. Like Shaqiri obviously went to Chicago, right? And Hector Herrera went to Houston, but like, the Mexican kind of connection down there in Texas or whatever. But like, if you're an international European star, whatever, it's New York, it's Miami, and it's LA, right? And it's going to be tough for the league to like, because they're going to have to start selling the smaller markets to these international guys, because with the DP rule, they're going to hold themselves out of a lot of stars who want to come over here and play because of the fact that teams can only have 3 DPs, and that once the 3 DPs in Miami, LA, and New York are done, they're not going to want to play anywhere else. Now, I know LA's kind of like skirting it with Bale and Chiellini not being DPs because they're taking pay cuts, which like if they want to take pay cuts, take pay cuts. Like I don't think that's should be an issue. Like if you want to live in LA because you've already made hundreds of millions of dollars in your career and you don't really care about the money anymore, so be it. Like, well, I'm not going to be the one to stop you. But I'm sure that all 3 of those teams, not so much New York City right now because they don't really have any of those big names at the moment, but and I guess Miami doesn't either. Well, Higuain, but he doesn't really count as a big name. But when those teams are like getting all these guys, like I'm sure MLS is like, yeah, like you can do this, but don't tell anyone, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like they want to grow the league and maybe just get rid of some of the silly rules that you have. And then you don't have to worry about teams breaking so many rules. You know what I mean? Like, I think it goes both ways in terms of like teams being shady, but MLS also like being kind of archaic and needing to update their practices to allow more team. Because if you implement like a salary cap and take away the DPs, if a team like Philly has $10 million to spare because everyone else is making pennies, you can get someone like Bale and offer him more than LA can, and then maybe he'll sign for you instead. You know what I mean? Like there's just a certain like benefit to being able to freely market yourself to all the stars instead of like these discovery rights things. Like Seattle has discovery rights.
Matthew Hoppe right now. What's San Jose?
Yeah, like I'm like, yeah. How could they possibly find Suarez? What a diamond in the rough. Like it's an interesting conversation that the league needs to start having about kind of updating how their rules work a little bit and modernizing it to go along with general footballing practices, while also keeping it more ethical than Europe, where you can just spend whatever. Like definitely have a salary cap, but also like take. Yeah, I don't even know. Barcelona has like money laundering going on. I don't know how they have money, but like keep like what is it? Why do we have U22 initiative spots? Like Atlanta couldn't sign Hoppe because they didn't have a U22 initiative. So why can't you just sign him in general? Like I don't understand what all these weird rules mean. I know Justin knows more about these rules than I do, but
yeah,
they just all seem so ridiculous that I don't even concern myself with them.
I think there is an element like the discovery rights. The initial practice of it was to be like a player coming in, because technically the rule is you can only register 7 players on your official discovery rights list, and then you can interchange them, but it has to be done officially through the league. There's a whole process that I can understand being done with, because at this point it's not really helping the under 22, I mean, that's a fairly new thing. I think that one, I mean, listen, Atlanta's kind of screwed themselves over. So I think them, they're just trying to, I mean, we said this before, they're just trying to put, put money papering over cracks that are deeply rooted in the higher ups in their organization. And it's not great. The whole thing about DPs and, I think the only reason I slightly disagree with the whole concept of that is you talk about, oh, well, if other teams, if there are no DPs and other teams had the ability to sign these players, you could attract them. At the same time, though, New York City, Miami, and LA are New York City, Miami, and LA. Like, as much as you want to promote these smaller markets, like, these cities are iconic cities for reasons. And yeah, I can go to, I don't know, Neymar's agent in 10 years and in 5 years and be like, hey, Philadelphia is a great city. Do you want to come here? And he'll be like, no, I like Miami. And it's like, well, like, what are you going to do to convince him that, what are you going to take him to Jim's and have him try a roast pork or like, you know what I mean? Like, I think the idea or what is Cincinnati going to do? Take him out for some skyline? Like, I think while I understand, like, I agree that the rules should be updated, but I think there's also this element of some of these cities are just like big attracting points for a reason, and it's more deeply rooted than just, oh, well, the DP rule. It's like the DP rule was set in place to level the playing field, and I think for the most part it has, because you look at like after what Atlanta did at 2017, 2018, they've kind of fallen off a cliff, which and other teams have been able to pick up the slack and been able to kind of, and LA Galaxy have fallen off. Like a lot of these teams that were big when these rules were put in place have started kind of falling off. So I think I do agree that the rules need to be updated, but I think some of the rules are good at least to keep for the level playing field.
It's interesting about like the marketing the cities thing though is like with Newcastle getting all that money, they're like players want to go play at Newcastle now because they know that the project is enticing and would be awesome to like bring a Champions League football to Newcastle or whatever, even though like maybe Newcastle isn't the most desirable city to play in England. Like everyone wants to go in London or I mean maybe Manchester. But like, and that's where I think if you had a salary cap and you had this extra, like you could entice players with money instead of just the location.
Don't we have like a hybrid salary cap though? Like it's not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's the reason why the DP rule was in place is to help their cap hit doesn't go against the total cap, which does help you get these upper echelon players, and then you also have allocation money which can buy down the cap hit. So as much as we joke about allocation money being a joke and what does it exactly mean, it's more of a financial cap relief, so it does help these teams sign some of these other players that might be taking lower money but usually might be higher wages and might fall under the DP realm. And I think, and to get your point, Zach, about Newcastle, I mean, you look at the players that Newcastle were linked with, it wasn't really any world beaters. I mean, there were definitely better quality players than they've been able to attract since like the Alan Shearer days. But I think like I said, I think an overall kind of an overhaul of some of the rules while keeping some of them like I think the DP rule I'm fine with. I think some of the other flexible things of like how you can use allocation money, how much of a transfer you can use, because right now you can use 100% of a homegrown sale, but you can only convert like I think $1 million or so of of allocation money for another outgoing transfer. And say you have like an Almiron or even some of these players that you can get these you can flip for at least a double profit. If you can only convert some of that money, I think that part is silly, and I feel like that should be updated. So I definitely think there are ways to go for this league to kind of, I think keep it. While I think there is a level playing field, I think you could definitely, if they actually started to crack down more on some of these things, you might actually see a bit of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these Europe obviously there's more of a lore now to Europe, and obviously, like, we also need to think about having deeper teams. So when you're talking about CCL, you guys remember when we were playing at America, and you got bench players making $1 million, and you got 16-year-old kids on our bench. So these are all things that this league definitely needs to think about. And to Elijah's points, he really does bring up a good point as well. Like, it's really tough. I do like to compare like European soccer players to like kind of like NBA players, like the echelon, kind of like same mindset. For years, for decades, the Sixers have had a difficult time of luring free agents to come here to Philadelphia, despite even being a solid team now. And it's just like when you look at it as like a major multi-million-dollar athlete, and you look at Philadelphia, and you just look at it, it's like, oh, it's not New York. Like Justin said, and like Zach said as well, it's like, nah, it's not New York, it's not LA, it's not Miami. But it's at some point, like, look. The thing is with like Philly, Boston, DC, like you're still really close to New York. And same thing goes to like a city like Orlando or hey, Atlanta. Like you're still pretty close to Miami. So those are things that the league needs to consider about.
Listen, KD's got to push that influence, man. Listen, we've seen listen, we saw him picture with Antoine Griezmann.
Yeah, we're not going to get a European star until Pulisic comes over in 10 years, and then they'll start filtering in.
Listen, I'm okay. I'm okay with waiting on the Pulisic effect to bring some other stars
that'll be the start of it, because I'll be like, oh, Philly's cool because like he's friends with all those guys. They're like, all right, let's go. And then
watch him tear up. Like, you talk about players tearing up the league. Christian Pulisic again.
Oh, he's made for MLS.
Against MLS defense.
He's made for MLS.
Just like you can just print the goals right here. Like, Jesus.
PJ letting us know. I miss the old days when MLS handed teams players to make.
Dude, when they used to pay the salary just so they would be on the team. Yeah, those are the good old days.
And then we got Alejandro Bedoya. But hey, that panned out. That panned out pretty well for us. So that's pretty good. But let's get to the action that happened over the weekend, gentlemen, because on Saturday, the Union went down to Orlando to face off against Orlando City. Hot, muggy night down there. But I'll say this: the Union looked pretty solid. They went back to the prototypical 4-4-2 diamond that we all see every single week here for the Union. And when you're looking at these lineups here, obviously Andre in goal, back line, Elliott back, thank God. And Mbaizo got to start, something we talked about last week, right? The Dime midfield back. The interesting part, obviously, no Ali due to yellow card accumulation. Jack McGlynn got to start at the right side, and then your two usual forwards in Ua and Carranza. First half, the Union definitely looked like the better of the two. And, of course, we had the Daniel Gazdak goal in the 39th minute here. Was it offsides? Was not offsides? VAR was obviously the topic of conversation in this match, and that was the first instance. Daniel Gazdak was in fact onside. Obviously, in the second half, we had the moment where did Gazdak hold on to Antonio Carlos or did he not? When you look at it again, I want to get your guys' thoughts as well. But I could clearly tell that both dudes were grabbing each other's shirts. The Union escaped off there because that would have been a penalty kick opportunity for Orlando, but the Union would walk out of Orlando with a 1-0 victory. 4 straight wins, gentlemen. They're definitely riding high right now, playing at a great form in the middle of summer. Perfect timing. Zach, it's been a while since you've been on here, man. Your takeaways from Saturday. What did you think of the match for the Union on Saturday night?
I mean, it was an ugly one, as it tends to be down in Florida when it's all muggy and gross. But it's a win nonetheless. And I think that's important to win those tough, gritty road games. I think that, the VAR stuff, Gazdag might have been offsides. Who knows? I like the way MLS does offsides with VAR, where if it's not clear and obvious, it's not offsides. They're not drawing the line to the guy's pinky toenail and saying,
I don't understand that.
He's off. He is off. And I'm like, is he though? I like the way MLS does VAR in terms of offsides anyway. The PK, honestly, I think 9 times out of 10, refs are calling that a penalty kick. I think this was the one time when he didn't. Like, I get they're both grabbing, but he's going up. Gazdag's not, and he's yanking him down. Like, if I were an attacking player, I would be kind of livid if I didn't get that call. But, benefits the Union, so who cares, right? We don't care about efficacy when the Union are involved. But yeah, I think, I've always said that, like, Jack, I don't think is made for that 4-4-2 box-to-box role. He was okay, like nothing crazy special. But I do think we have to talk about the fact that I think at this moment in time, Daniel Gazdag is probably second in the race for MVP.
Yes.
I think Drusy is the only guy who can chat. Drusy's got 13 goals and 7 assists. So unless Austin falls off a cliff, I think he's gonna win.
How do they find this guy? What the heck, dude? Is their second year?
He was out of nowhere.
He's filthy. He's so good.
He's
so good. But I think Gazdag has cemented himself easily in second place in that race right now. If the Union somehow come back up and win the Shield, then maybe he does win it. But that's a big if. They have to overcome a 6-point deficit, assuming LA wins the game in hand. So we'll see what happens, but I think that's my major takeaways. Gazdag just keeps playing like he's, one of the best players in the league, because he probably is up there, probably in the 10 of players in the league right now.
I completely agree with you, man. He literally does it all. He'll assist, he'll score goals. Obviously, 10 goals on the season now.
5 assists as well, yeah.
Dude, to me, he's definitely.
And he's not a striker. And he's got double-digit goals.
And that's the important part right there, man. He's part of this whole, like, look, the trend these days in the MLS, it's having that number 10. You kind of need that number 10 to be competitive in this league and be one of those contenders. Obviously, you need the killer, which Daniel Gazdag has been showing a little bit of as well. But I want to see what the Union can do. Down a goal, or you need a goal to win the game. Like, I want to see that moment, who can step up in those type of situations, and that's what we've really been missing. But for you, Justin, what were your takeaways from Saturday night?
I think to start the game, it was, and we talked about it in the preview, that depending on how the teams, line up and how they play against, you could see a rotation between Olivier and Nate. I think the way Orlando plays definitely suited Olivier's game. It was very expansive. You allowed him to get on the ball. He's actually, it seemed like he's been better defensively, but I think
that's just because the Union have had more ball than the other team.
For the last 4 games. I was about to say, like, take that with a grain of salt, because it's been like the Union have actually started to have a lot more, like at least 40% possession in most of these games, so it's been a lot different. Daniel Gazdag once again being ruthless in the box. I will say, like I said, I liked that they went to VAR, because if you look at the timing of when Glesnes has that on, Ruan, like, they are about even, or Gazdag is about maybe a half step onside. Like, it is perfectly timing that Ruan took slow to step up. And listen, that little side kick, like, stab, that's just filthy. That, like, getting in there in front of Gallese just to poke that in.
Dude, that's why you put players on the goalkeeper. That's the exact reason. That's it.
And just the touch, though, like, it was like, it was like Karate Kid, like, coming out of nowhere with the with the side foot. I think overall, the Union definitely, again, not a pretty game. They don't have to be. The call at the end, looking at that again and again and again, I think the ref made the right call. I understand, like, definitely I can understand the looking at it, because at the very least it was either going to be a foul or was going to be a PK. So I can understand the VAR official saying, you got to look at this. If you look at the start of the play, don't get me wrong, both players have each other's jerseys, but Carlos pulling Gazdag's jersey down and you trying to use him to vault over him, and all you see is Daniel Gazdag just trying to like. I mean, he's almost getting the jersey pulled over his head as he's trying to. So like, it's one of those who initiated the contact. It was Antonio Carlos. Like it was one of those. If it had been flipped, yeah, you're absolutely getting that call against. And it's like, at the time of VAR, it's not who reacts. It's who initiates contact, who does something first in the line of play of things. That being said, hey, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it went our way. The Union again. I have no fucking clue why we keep playing in Florida in mid-July every fucking year.
No one likes us. No one likes us.
I know Don Garber is a sleazeball, but what did we do to have him schedule us in Florida in the middle of the summer? Like, my friends down there are like, "Oh, when are you coming down?" I'm like, "When we're not playing you guys in the middle of the swampiest part of the year." Like, hey, if it's a March or September game, yeah, go right ahead. I will fly right down to the land of the mouse, but not in the middle of the summer. Are you kidding me? You could not pay me enough money to sweat that much when I don't have to go down to sweat.
No, but for both Orlando and Miami, just build a dome or like a semi-dome, what like the Dolphins have right now.
Just do what the Qatar's doing, and just
air conditioning,
just air conditioning and domes, and I mean, if you overlook the human rights abuses, their stadiums are gonna be AC'd.
That's there at least there's that, right? At least there's
Becky's got the cash, dude. They could do it.
That is true. There is one other point I wanted to bring up. I was thoroughly impressed again by Carranza, and more so because going into the season, and we obviously talked about it earlier, we wanted someone who can have that killer instinct, and I just feel and I watch Julian with that killer instinct, and the more he gets comfortable with Uwa and Gazdag, I just feel like he's more than likely for now looking like more the killer striker that we were looking for. Uwa's still trying to figure it out, but it looks like Carranza has a little bit more, guys.
No, I think that's the thing. Like based on players in the past with coming to MLS in second seasons and Daniel Gazdag this season, I feel like Uwa next season is going to take that next step. This season coming in, I mean, we saw you can't with all the stuff that he had coming in just to even get into the country, and then he has the injury. I mean, that's kind of a shitty way to start the season. But the fact that he had that start, and now you have the potential to have 3 double-digit scorers. I don't think. Can you remember the last time the Union even had 2? Like, I can, off the top of my head, cannot remember a time where the Union had more than 1 double-digit scorer. And I think that just goes to show that this team has real potential to be dangerous. And that is, I think that's what, despite all the draws and all that, that's what's genuinely keeping me at least an even keel. You're not overly optimistic, not, pessimistic, is, man, you just look at how this offense has been clicking. Like, it is going to be so, it is going to have to be the Union, breaking themselves down instead of, teams really shutting them down. And I think that's that's what happened in Chicago, where the Union just beat themselves up. So that's the thing. The fact that you could have 3 double-digit goal scorers is just mind-blowing. And beginning of the season, I'm not sure. I mean, I thought maybe 2, but to have 3, and I think it would be insane.
I think the big thing to talk about with Carranza as well is something I said when he was signed, and he was before Uwa was signed, and we thought that he might be the only one. was like, he can't be the only guy. And it's not because he's not good, and it's not because he, doesn't work hard or whatever. It's because he's 21 years old. And to put the mantle of a team's designated number 9 on a 21-year-old's shoulders who hasn't even done it in MLS before because, he barely played in Miami, and when he did, he wasn't that good, was something that I don't think would have worked out. But bringing in Ua, who's 27, allows him to take, the criticism of, oh, he's not as good as we thought he was going to be, all that stuff, while Carranza in the background is having a good season, and people are looking at him as the second striker and being like, oh, if our second striker is this good, imagine how good we'll be when our main guy is firing on all cylinders. So Carranza's in a spot where criticism, unless obviously he misses 4 sitters in a game and we lose 3-1 or something, but he is kind of above criticism right now because of the fact that he wasn't brought in as the main guy. And I think him not having that pressure of being the main guy is why he's having such a good season.
And that's the thing, Zach, looking at it, it you don't have to, look at his time in Miami. It's just he's having a career year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just goes to show, one, he's being played in the right position, but two, you look at that connection between him and Gazdag, between him and Ua are starting to really get on the same page. It is amazing to see, and I think the reason, Zach, that you're right, that he essentially, unless he just goes on the coldest of cold streaks and just does not do anything at all, is because I think it's just his work rate.
Yeah.
He has an insanely relentless work rate. He will get in there and do all the dirty work, allow Gazdag and Ua to just be in the right positions, to allow the play to develop. And having a striker like that and telling Carranza, hey, just go out there and just cause havoc. Just do everything in your power to make life hell. And you know what? If you're in the right position, fire it on net. Yeah. Do whatever you can. Get in there, create havoc, because, hey, if the goalie makes a save and Uwa's there, or Gazdag is right on the rebound, or you create a corner and you get a goal off a corner, you are doing so much more. And I look back at, what was it? I believe was it the game against Montreal where the assist where Carranza goes all the way out. He holds off a player and he passes it to Ali, who curls it into the far post. That's the kind of play. It's that's what gets you the respect of the fans and the media around here. Is, you know what, you are doing everything in your power to help this team. You are being selfless, but you also can be selfish if you want to. I think understanding that fine line is something we haven't had from players really ever to this point.
It's good points. It's good points, gentlemen. Look, matches are 3 points are always going to come easily, and I thought the Union really grinded it out, and it was a well-deserved 3 points. But listen, we got to move on. We got to keep this momentum going. 4-game winning streak is great, but you're going to have a club that's going to be coming into Subaru Park that is going to be looking to play a little bit of a spoiler. We got Houston coming to town. Feels like it's been forever since we played against Houston. Fafita's coming back, so you guys know me. I'm really excited for that as well. But we're going to talk about the Houston Dynamo, but we're going to get some help as always, ladies and gentlemen. So please, without further ado, from the Striker News, please welcome Sir Victor on to DOOP by the River. Victor, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? Pleasure to be on here talking Houston Dynamo and good matchup here this weekend with the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a lot of fun, Victor. We're super excited to have you on and talk some Houston. We want to get the catch up of Fafa Pico. We're big Fafa Pico fans still here in Philadelphia. But Victor, first off, as we always, obviously it's the first time for you here on DOOP by the River, which we're really excited to have you on. But kind of explain for the people in Philadelphia who aren't aware what you are or what you do. Explain a little bit about yourself and what you kind of do down there in Houston.
Yeah, I've been in Houston I'm Houston born and bred first and foremost. So you're getting somebody that's obviously been H-Town. Covering the Dynamo for just about over a decade. Started doing some freelance work, helping out with some of the TV broadcasts, done some radio, and now doing writing for thestriker.com, where we're covering the Houston Dynamo day to day. We obviously got the other 3 Texas MLS teams. We just expanded over to California with 2 LA teams, Atlanta. So I don't know. Maybe we'll make it to Philly sometime soon, hopefully. But yeah, we're very, very excited what's going down here in Houston. I think fans are excited with Houston trying to get back into what they were back when they faced the Philadelphia Union in the playoffs, right? A team that was an MLS Cup contender.
Well, Dragons last year, man. One and only year, man. That was a fun year. But Victor, it's a really good point, and I'm glad you said you are H-Town born and raised. But what was your reaction as a soccer fan living in Houston, hearing that San Jose was relocating to Houston? What was the initial reaction from that city?
At that point, it was great. I mean, we were getting an MLS team down here in Houston, being part of the big league, right, in soccer in the United States. And then the way it just kind of went about. Well, I mean, you got a great team, a team that was coming off, its best season in San Jose, I believe, as far as wins and losses and that kind of thing. And then immediately got off the ground running. MLS Cup in 2006, MLS Cup in 2007. I mean, it just and then the way people embraced that team too. I mean, it was a team of guys that wanted to be ingrained in the community. I mean, guys like Brian Ching, Dero, Ricardo Clark. I mean, these guys were all open to the community. I mean, autographs, FaceTime, all that stuff. That was never a problem down here, which I think it just kind of made everybody more endearing to the team and something I think people wish this current Dynamo team could start becoming.
Brian Ching, that is for an
It's a good
MLS,
name.
One of the MLS originals like me. Brian Ching is a name that fills you with so much. Have you been down to his bar down?
Yeah, I've not as of late because I haven't been out as much in the last couple of years, but after COVID and all, and just you can call me a frequent customer. So it's a nice place. Yeah.
I don't blame. When's Seba gonna get a bar, Justin?
I mean, at this point, he's essentially a silent owner of the Larimer, and he's there. So eventually, who knows? He may get his own bar.
That's a really good point, man. It's a really good point. How's the Dynamo kind of been fitting into the sports mind of Houston fans? Obviously, it's a really good sports town, I would say.
Yeah, it's I think for the most part it is kind of Texans, Astros, Rockets. But I think the Dynamo definitely fit in there. And again, winning those 2 titles in the beginning, getting people on board, it was kind of like they earned their 4th spot there in the general Houston sports fan. And then it just kind of started getting lost with, as results kind of faded over the years and there wasn't as much talent being put in, as much money on the field. But I do think, I mean, especially because I compare it with the Dash, right? I mean, it's sort of similar.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dash have kind of struggled to take a place in that general sports market, maybe the way like the Houston Comets used to do, right, when they were back in the WNBA winning titles. I feel like Houston kind of earned their spot to sort of just give it up so easily. They got a little bit of ground to make up, but there is name recognition for sure. I think if they put a good team together on the field, fans will show out.
As always. As always, man.
Victor, though,
Same thing here.
I do have to ask. We talked about it pre-show, and it's honestly an interesting question and one that I think definitely warrants a discussion. I mean, y'all, big move bringing in Mexican international Hector Herrera, who I think is definitely going to be a breath of fresh air for this team. And as we've started to see, the fans have started to come in. And what do you think? The team. What took them so long to tap into the big? I mean, this is
ownership.
One of the first Mexican international players, which in a city like Houston feels like kind of like missing a big way to connect with the community at large.
Ownership, plain and simple. The Dynamo got a new owner about a year ago, last summer, summer of 2021. Ted Siegel. He's come in. He's got the majority control, so he makes all the decisions. He's put his money where his mouth is, on and off the field, because they've done some renovations to the stadium as well. And that's where you got to start. I mean, Gabriel Brenner, for as much as he might have been I think at some point the only Mexican owner in MLS, other than that Cubo Torres signing, I mean, there wasn't much of a motive, right, to go out and do what you just said. I mean, bring in a big time Mexican star, which is something fans down here had been clamoring for years, and they finally got it. So hopefully they support him with better players around him, so they can truly get the value out of him and start getting some winning results.
Diego Line is next, right?
Listen, they bring Chicharito down, or maybe if Raul Jimenez wants to come back stateside, Houston, the Texas team's definitely in play.
And that's the thing, like with this new owner, the possibility is there, right? Because the money is there now. If the guy wants to bring him in, it really is just money isn't the problem anymore. Now it is just convincing a player and telling him, hey, do you want to head to MLS? Is this a place you'd like to go? I think as far as market appeal, Houston is, especially for any Latin American player, it's a big known city. I mean, just the culture down here. There's no reason for no Latin players to not want to come to Houston, and especially Mexicans that know, because of the national team, know this city so well. It is only a money deal, and that's off the table already, because now you got an owner who's committed.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that you look at from a market like Houston. We talked about earlier in the show about what outside of the New Yorks, the LAs, and the Miamis, what can cities offer? Well, for a city like Houston, some of these Mexican international stars, especially some that maybe they're not at the end of the career, maybe they're in the prime. I mean, you have players coming in their late 20s, early 30s to the league, and you say to them, hey, if you show up, if you work hard, you will be revered here for years to come. And it's not a huge market as say LA, but you know what? In the context of what they're doing, it is exactly the perfect market. So I feel like now, if you have an owner that is actually willing to put up the money and willing to back that talk, you now have more of a bargaining chip with these players, along with the notoriety, along with the fan respect of, hey, we may be able to pull in these players.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Victor, I want to get to the action on the pitch this season here. So obviously the Dynamo trying to fight for a playoff spot in that Western Conference. What has been like the plan going? Obviously, playoff drought. We all know it's been going on down in Houston since 2017. So, what are Dynamo trying to do, rev up, trying to get back into the playoff picture here?
Yeah, well, the first thing they try to do is new general manager and Pat Onstad, club legend, coming back and sort of getting things in a little bit more organized. Try to get a better roster together. I think they've struggled with that in the first year, maybe moving some contracts around. And they've kept a lot of the roster from last season, which obviously finished last in the Western Conference. The last two seasons finished last in the Western Conference. So they've tried to bolster that squad with Sebastián Ferreira, the Paraguayan designated player, Hector Herrera, who we've mentioned, so two big stars. But it still needs more work. It still needs more help all around. I think the winger position is one that they definitely need more competition in. Middle of the field, I think they're fine now, but defense maybe is also another area where they haven't been as strong. And the problem is they got some money tied up there because the previous GM decided to give two center backs $1 million deals. So it's kind of hard to move those guys within the league when nobody's going to want to take those contracts. Yeah.
Did you guys pay Tim Parker $1 million, or are you talking about a different center back?
No, yeah. So they brought in Tim Parker. Tim Parker was renewed, and Tim Parker's making $1 million a year, according to the MLS player salary. So to be fair, he's putting up some better performances as of late. But I think
I don't doubt it.
Those kind of things. I think it's hard to find any center back in MLS that probably merits that kind of money. Teenage Hadebe is also getting that kind of money. So that's and again, as long as the owner's putting the bill, it doesn't really matter. But as far as like trying to put a roster together, salary cap, those kind of things, I think that's kind of where
Okay.
they still need to put some money elsewhere, maybe in the outside backs. For sure, they've tried to bring in a Brazilian Seca, who's at right back. He's
Okay.
sort of settling in, but yeah, I still think they have some holes. Certainly, you mentioned Papa Pico. He's been a solid guy. Maybe for as much as fans here have criticized him as of late, because there was
That's
some
what I
rumors
heard.
of maybe wanting to move out, but he's really the only guy putting up stats. It's a very defensive team.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's kind of been the deal with Fafa, right? Where it's, he's been one of the only ones who's really spoken out and saying, well, I'd like to be more offensive if you give me a choice. That's how I want to play. I don't want to come, too far back at times. And I think that I think there is a point to be had for that. But yeah, certainly, he's been there. The other guys have kind of shifted around. Nobody's really found some consistency. Actually, one of the guys that has found a little bit of consistency, Thoro Farson, taken out a super draft. He's meant to be a striker, and they've put him as a winger, which, I mean, it's a change of position, but I
Right.
think that speaks more to the guys that are playing in that position aren't getting the job done.
You guys have also been going through a couple managers as well. So what's going on? Because I also am hearing Naga out as well down in Houston.
That's
Yeah, it was a tough. I think it was a tough sell at the beginning, right? New GM brought his own coach, right? I think any GM's probably going to want their guy. They expressed they wanted an MLS, a guy with experience in Major League Soccer, and as you know, guys like Bob Bradley are few and far between, right? So, to get somebody who's experienced, I mean, they figured, all right, well, let's get a former MLS player. Guy was coming up in Kansas City as a coach, right? Nagamura was with Sporting Kansas City too. And again, it kind of goes back to my point is it doesn't matter who you have as a coach if you're not giving him the players to succeed. He's only going to get so far, right? The academy system, the academy pipeline here isn't the way it is in Philly or Dallas or some of these other, even in Seattle or in LA or in RSL. It isn't there. It's something where they still have to till the soil a lot. So that's why the easy fix is to go out, get some transfers from other leagues. Hopefully those guys can come in and make a difference. But yeah, it's still a work in progress. And I think the frustrating thing in Houston is fans were told, the goal is to make the playoffs, and now it seems like obviously that might be a tougher task.
Do you guys struggle like when it comes to like youth products, youth homegrowns with Dallas? Obviously, Dallas, always picking all the good products around the area.
No, because I think Houston, it's kind of a gold mine waiting to be discovered, right? And especially in the way it works in MLS is everybody has their own territory secured, so it's not like Dallas is coming in here and taking any players. Maybe where they are competing with, I think, is some of the outside leagues, right? There is a lot of Liga MX presence here, like Liga MX academies. That maybe that's where some players are going. I do think there are a lot of players that get lost, particularly in Hispanic leagues, and I say that from seeing those leagues from experience. And I think that's still part of the thing that Houston has to figure out. I think there's local clubs that have been doing a good job, but Houston isn't. The relationship with those clubs hasn't been what it needs to be. In fact, I think it was very, I would say, tense in previous years, right? It was almost very hostile, right? The Dynamo tried to go in and poach their academy products. Well, naturally, those clubs became protective. And I think that's a relationship that Pat Onstad has to mend. To give you an example, today, I think we saw Chris Richards go to Crystal Palace, right?
Yeah.
Well, Chris Richards passed through Houston, through the Houston Texans soccer club. And again, in best interest of looking out for him, the technical director of that club, Eric Quill, who's now with the Columbus Crew, decided I'm not going to hand him over to the Dynamo. Where, to be fair, I think, with the experience we've seen of producing MLS players, that the track record isn't there. Said I'm going to try to push him over to FC Dallas, goes up through FC Dallas, heads to Bayern Munich, and we see today the rest is history. And I think you've seen a lot of guys like Chris Richards that have been here in the Houston area that just haven't been given either the opportunity or or had to have gone search for the opportunities elsewhere. So yeah, it's a big deal with the academy system down here. The point is it's not where it needs to be, and it's a long work in progress before I think they can get some MLS ready guys.
I mean, and I feel like a lot of the clubs before, like maybe like the 2010 expansion, a lot of those clubs do try kind of like have fallen behind with the new modern age of the MLS, homegrowns and finding young players around the world and developing them still. So it is definitely tough. And a lot of people forget, like, I cover football as well. So people, obviously Texas has always been the hotbed for football players, but people forget, like, it's a hotbed for soccer players as well,
Right.
from all different likes of the of this side of the world. So yeah, you definitely got to take
anywhere
advantage.
you go in the city, you'll find a soccer field, man.
Yeah, man. It's definitely a good point. But all right, so let's look at our side a little bit. So Zach, obviously, 4 straight wins here for us here, coming back home. Do you feel any potential letdown here for the Union going up against Houston?
I think if it was away, I would say absolutely. I think being home makes it a little more comfortable for them, and I think that they'll be, on their game in front of the home crowd and stuff like that. So I don't think that I would call it like a trap game or anything, although like I could easily see us dropping points just because, MLS is kind of crazy sometimes and it happens. But I think that this game is going to be like more suited for the Union, how they're going to want to play as of late, at least, like keeping possession and kind of breaking teams down with the front three. And I think that they'll be just fine at home this week.
Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Houston a solid away club?
Hey, what?
Isn't Houston like good away from home? Like, aren't they?
They're better than they were. They historically haven't been great, but it actually went winless on the road last year. But obviously now with Nagamura in this year, they've got 3 wins away. I think if you dig a little deep, you gotta look at the teams they beat. Right, at Miami, that wasn't the strongest team. At LA Galaxy, that wasn't the strongest team either, and I think that was a game that Chicharito and Costa were on the bench to start the game. That was right before their Tráfico U.S. Open Cup match, and then you have the San Jose match, which I think that's another one where San Jose is probably not as strong as. So not to put an asterisk next to their name, but I do think they've struggled on the road against tougher opposition, which obviously the Union are going to be a tough test for them. The Union are undefeated at home, so I mean, that's another thing going y'all's way. But I do think the one thing Houston does have is experienced players that aren't afraid to play anybody, right? Guys like Darwin Quintero, Herrera, you mentioned, even a younger guy like Alberto Carrasquilla, who's been on the road with Panama in hostile environments. So I do think from that perspective, even Sebastián Ferreira up top played Copa Libertadores. I mean, I don't think these guys, as long as those guys are on the field, you're able to get the best out of them. I don't think they're gonna be a team that's scared. But they are a team that have struggled to provide service up front, to finish up front more than anything. If they can get an early goal, if they can get the opening goal, then maybe I can say, yeah, maybe they can come away with something. But it will be a tough test.
I do expect. Listen. I do expect Fafa to come out because the crowd. Listen, there's still, like I said, a lot of fans that still love Fafa here. He's gonna feel that energy. He's gonna want to come out here and ball out.
I'll clap him up before the game, but they
He
say
definitely should get a little bit of a standing.
Once game starts, all bets are off.
He was so like that. Okay, what year was it? Was it the 2018 or 2019? I think it was the 2018 year. Like, he went on this run. Like, there were some nice goals that he was putting up. The one where he put it between Stephen Fry's 5-hole in Seattle.
Oh, stealing 3 points in Seattle when we had no business walking away with a win. That
was a fun year. The goals in Orlando, the bachata in the corner with CJ Sapong. That was some good moments with Fafa Pico here, man.
Always got a soft spot for Fafa.
The tactical shift with the Union in 2019, it kind of like the writing was a little bit on the wall for Fafa because we're going into this 4-4-2 diamond. And as you could tell, Victor, Fafa's more of a prototypical winger, and we really didn't have a need for that. And so, obviously he goes to Dallas, and now he's over there in Houston. So he's definitely found himself a little bit of a home down there in Texas. This is going to be my first game since the Eastern Conference Final last year with Elijah. You enjoy the game, and hopefully the Union can get you 3 points, man, because that was definitely a rough night down there. But all right, so I want to get to some lineup predictions here. So, Victor, what could Houston look like? Formation and the lineup, starting 11 coming here to Chester.
You're probably looking at a 4-3-3. It's kind of what they usually. They may shift away from it a little bit, but ultimately that's what they use. You have 4 at the back. I think obviously Steve Clark in goal. You might get the Brazilian Seca out because we haven't seen him for a couple of games. So unless something else is going on, where you may end up getting Griffin Dorsey, but I think you probably get Seca, Hadebe, and Parker in the middle. Again, barring anything weird, and then I would think Adam Lundqvist, even with this last game where he didn't have his best game. Adam Lundqvist or Sam Junka. In reality, I think they're both kind of the same, but so that's probably your back 4. I would expect Herrera to start, Matias Vera in the middle, and Alberto Carrasquilla, which has been the three in the middle, which that kind of puts Quintero up front, even though he kind of shifts in the middle, false 9 as a 10, however you might want to take it, but he's kind of in the top of those 3 midfielders. And then it's the 2 wingers we've seen. It's Fafa and Thoro Farson. So unless Sebastian Ferreira plays in this game and things get shifted around, that's kind of the way they've been going.
Justin, I'm Zach. Sorry, I wanted to ask Zach this one. Zach, I am really curious because look, Houston's that front line doesn't have a lot of size, and obviously we got that wall going up with Glasses and Ellie. Man, that should be really interesting to see, brother.
Yeah, I think that might lend themselves actually towards the front 3 of Houston, simply because like if they do play in a smart way where they don't try and cross balls in and they actually try and work the ball through the middle and through Quintero and try and play 1-2s and get inside the box on the ground. Like, I think that's kind of a place where our center backs do struggle at times because they are big and they are strong, but I wouldn't say either of them are slow, but I don't think either of them are the quickest. So I think that depending on how Houston does play could cause issues for the back to the 2 center backs. But if they do try and cross balls in, I think that the Union should be okay. But that goes into game planning, and it comes down to how the coaches want to play going forward.
Yeah, that's kind of how Nagamura's, well, at least from the beginning of the year, that's what they like to do, get the outside backs more involved, have them cross balls in. But again, they've struggled to kind of generate some attack. The reason Sebastian Ferreira, he's up there with Quintero as the team's top goal scorer, they both have, I think, 7 goals apiece. But the thing with Ferreira is some of the goals that he's come up with are goal scorer goals, right? I mean, like the half, the goal from half field against Austin. There's a tough one he had against FC Dallas. The one against LA Galaxy also is one he kind of steals away from the goalkeeper. They have struggled to find him generally inside the box. And that goes for really any forward, right? I think that's, had Maxi Urruti stayed in Houston and not gone to Austin, I think it would have been the exact same situation when Ramirez was here. I think, I'm saying because it's generally the same players, right? I mean, they've just struggled with converting chances and getting quality chances inside the box.
That's a good point. Zach, what do you think the lineup will look like on Saturday?
So Martinez can't play, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
yellow card suspension.
All right.
Surprise.
Shocking factor.
All right. So I think backline will stay the same as it was against Orlando. I think Bizo will start again.
Really?
I think Leon, if they stick to the 4-4-2, which I presume they will, I think Leon will play the 6. I think Ali will be on the right, Jack will be on the left, and then the front 3 will be the front 3. Carranza, Gazdag, and Ua up top. But yeah, we'll see. I think I'd honestly, like in the 4-4-2, I'd like to see Pax or Quinn get the start on the left side. But I think it'll be Jack.
Do you agree, Justin?
I definitely agree on the back line. I mean, we talked about, the platoon at right back kind of being a situational basis. And with the way the Union have been playing and the fact that they have been possessing more, but also still kind of being able to throw the ball up quick, get those passes in, and get your outside backs flying. I think that suits Olivier's game, even though Nate is the better defensive winger. In this, against a team like Houston, you kind of want to play a little more expansive and over the top. I think you have, with two guys as fast as Olivier and Kai, I think you're going to throw them up. The midfield four, I agree with Zach. Leon's going to be put at the 6. I think you're going to essentially try to clog the middle and force them wide, which you've been doing to teams, and with the center backs you have, you'll be clearing those chances all game. I think the only question I have is at that left shuttler. And again, it would be between Jack and Paxton. I think if Jim wants to go bold and wants to throw more of an attacking flair, I think Paxton goes in. At the very least, if not to start as a early second half sub. But I agree with Zach. It's probably going to be Jack. And then that front three is the front three. I mean, the way they are playing at this point, like I said, you have the potential for 3 double-digit goal scorers with the way Carranza and Uwa have been playing together, and Gazdag in as good a form as he has been in, like I said, we've talked about a potential MVP type season. I think there will definitely be a plethora of chances heading Steve Clark's way.
Oh man, it should be definitely interesting to see for sure, man. It'll be interesting. Like I wouldn't throw out the 4-2-3-1 option as well. You see like how more effective it could be with Jack McGlynn in there as one of those holding guys. But we'll see what Jim kind of throws out there for Houston on Saturday night. But all right, so let's get to the prediction time. So Victor, give us your prediction for Saturday. And since this is a Union podcast, what we want from you is a key for the Union to beat Houston on Saturday.
Well, I do think Houston's probably going to go up there and maybe come back empty-handed. What can the Union exploit? I think it's that defensive back four, right? I mean, I think especially that left side, Lundqvist hasn't been as solid. They're a team that can be caught, right, when they push up. I think Kadebe isn't as solid as a center back. Parker's has his moments, but yeah, there's times when they've been disorganized, and I mean, especially if you guys have quality forwards, which looks like you do. Should be not an easy game, but an accessible game at home.
So it's gonna be big for Mbaizo or Harriel alongside Ali Bedoya on that right side to punish the attack on that side. All right, Justin, give us your prediction and key for this match here for the Union.
I think, like I said, I think as Victor said, I think the key is going to be, can your outside backs exploit the space in behind? I think absolutely with Kai. I mean, we've been seeing it all season. He, in terms of cross percentages, he's one of the highest in the league. He gets in the right spaces. He can pick out targets. He's an absolute threat. Olivier has been getting better at picking his moments. I think that was an issue last season, and it was a reason why he lost his spot for a while. But he's been a lot smarter, and I will say his defensive game has gotten a little better. Nate is still the defensive player, but in terms of attacking, Olivier is an insane threat down that right wing. And if they can get in behind and really create havoc for that back line, it's gonna be the Union's pickings all game. I think 3-1 Union. I think this is a game where it's going to be, it's going to be a question of, I agree with Victor, who scores first. But the difference between the Union teams of the past is the Union have gone down in games. They're, especially at home, they've gone down, and you look at like New England, they storm right back. Within 10 minutes, they were already, generating a ton of chances. And then in the next 5 minutes, you get 2 goals. I think the Union at home, it's tough to pick against them. Like and a team that in Houston has an uphill climb to the playoffs. I mean, you're only 5 points out, but the teams between you and the playoffs might not slip. So having to go on the road to Philly is not the game you want to kind of kickstart the momentum in the right direction to march up towards the playoff line.
Elijah's saying Nate all day. All right, we'll see. We'll see, Elijah.
Situationally, I against Houston, I feel
In a
like
vacuum, though, yeah, Nate over Bizo.
Oh yeah, no. Overall, Nate is the better complete back, but
it's been fun to watch over these past couple of weeks of those guys showing what they got. But Zach, give us your prediction and a key for the Union.
So key, I think, will be finishing chances that are created, because I think there will be a lot of chances created. So as long as the Union are clinical in front of goal, I think they should be all right. And I think it's going to be a 2-0 win.
2-0 victory here for the Union. We shall see. Should be a fun one down Saturday night. Victor, where will you be watching this match?
I will be down in Houston for this one, catching it remote, but should be a fun one.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And Victor, before we let you go, man, first off, please take care of Nelson Quiñones. I saw that news. Once Caldas product going over to Houston, so that should be a lot of fun. Love seeing the young Colombian kids here in the States showing what they got there. But Victor, where can people find your great work, man?
Yeah, thestriker.com. It's as easy as that. Click over to the Houston Dynamo section, and you'll see all the coverage right there.
Absolutely, Victor. Seriously, thank you so much for coming on here, man, and give us the insight of the Houston Dynamo, brother.
Oh, thank you, guys.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of DOOP by the River. Big thank you to Victor for coming on in here. Of course, thank you to you guys for checking it out. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe for all your future viewings of DOOP by the River. And of course, we're back. We're back on the DOOP by the River podcast streaming site. So wherever you stream podcasts, you will see this episode on there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Victor. That is Justin and Gary, Muay Thai fighter Friedberg. Of course, we got Zach Labasso, and of course, I go by the name of El Parcero Philly, and we are telling you guys to DOOP on. We'll talk to you.